begin the program by telling you that the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says the federal government will be reaping billions of dollars in debt relief from some creditors if the debt for climate swap deal is accepted. Osinbajo's spokesman Laolu Akande, in a statement in Abuja, said the swap deal was proposed by the Vice President recently in the United States. The idea, described as fresh thinking in Washington, D.C. by senior American government officials, is already receiving positive reviews, even as Osinbajo explained the potential for significant debt cancellation for African countries. He also described the idea as a climate change-related financing instrument deserving of global consideration, as it is a win-win proposal. Osinbajo also pushed the idea of opening up the carbon markets in Africa so that the climate change actions of African countries could be adequately verified. Country or institution agrees to forgive part of a debt if the debtor country will pay the avoided debt service in a local currency into an escrow or any other transparent fund, and the funds must then be used for a commitment by the country to invest in domestic currency in specific climate or energy transition projects during a commonly agreed period. The expectation is that DFC debt will produce the level of indebtedness and free up physical resources to be invested in clean energy projects in Nigeria and other countries signed up for the program. Once accepted by creditor nations, Osinbajo had explained that the swap deal was a type of debt swap where bilateral or multilateral debt was forgiven by creditors in exchange for a commitment by the debtor to use the outstanding debt service payments for national climate action programs. The Africa Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum 2022 Active 2022 successfully concluded in Bridgetown, Barbados, with a commitment by participants to remove the scars of the past and build a commercial bridge towards forging a prosperous future for Africa and the Caribbean. In the communique presented at the end of the forum, the partners pledged the concrete implementation of strategic partnership between the business communities in Africa and the Caribbean, with the objective of fostering bilateral cooperation and engagement in trade, investment, technology transfer, innovation, transport, tourism, culture, and other services. The signing of the partnership agreement between Afrexim Bank and 7 Caribbean states will usher in investments to concretize the commercial relations between the two regions, with an immediate focus on establishing an air bridge and business-to-business matchmaking through the newly established Africa Caribbean Business Council. They stressed the critical importance of enhancing investment and trade for economic and social transformation in line with the forum's theme of One People, One Destiny, Uniting and Reimagining Our Future. Active 2022 was convened by the government of Barbados and Afrexim Bank in collaboration with the African Union Commission, the AFCFTA Secretariat, the African Business Council, the CARICOM Secretariat, and the Caribbean Export Development Agency. It was co-managed by Invest Barbados and Export Barbados and attended by over 1,200 participants from 41 African countries, 16 Caribbean countries, and representatives from as far as Oceania. The communique, read by Ambassador Chad Blackman, permanent representative of Barbados to the United Nations in Geneva, Vienna and Rome, also thanked the 25 heads of state and their representatives and other government organizations for convening Active 2022. And Ambassador Chad Blackman joins me live from Geneva to speak further on the just concluded Active 2022. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you very much, and how are you?
I'm good. How is it Geneva? How's Geneva this afternoon in Nigeria?
Well, Geneva is well, but I literally just landed in Geneva from Barbados just about an hour ago
Okay.
from the very conference. And I must say that we're particularly pleased and very, very proud as to what were the outcomes. Very historic moment for us
Okay.
in the Caribbean and in Africa, of course, because we were able to, in the course of 2 days, really express in very clear terms the way forward for two regions
Okay.
relative to trade, business, and everything.
I was just about to go into that. How did it go then?
Phenomenally well, phenomenally well. What became very clear is that the Caribbean and Africa, we have to deepen our ties. We have so much in common. Of course, us in the Caribbean, we have our historical ties from Africa. And what would have started as a very harsh reality some hundreds of years ago through the unfortunate scourge of slavery, we're now saying that we have to deepen our ties to a different type of trade, not the slave trade, but trades in goods and services and music and culture, looking to bridge things relative to technology transfer. And also, one of the things that we looked at and what became even clearer as well is the fact that our people need to travel to each other's countries and regions. I would really like to emphasize on the fact that Barbados and many other countries in the region have also, in order to facilitate that movement, removed visas for most African countries, for example, into Barbados. So therefore, it allows for persons to come there to do business and tourism. But part of the issue has been hitherto is that it is one thing to waive a visa into, let's say, Barbados. But if a citizen from Nigeria or Kenya or Ghana or Togo has to go to Europe to get to Barbados, they still then require a visa. And therefore, there's a very strong demand, and there has been a very clear commitment coming out of this historic conference. We're now going to look to establish direct airlift from Barbados in the Caribbean to the continent, therefore allowing citizens of the Caribbean to fly directly to Africa, and citizens from African countries flying directly to Barbados in the Caribbean. That is transformative, and that is really a very tangible expression of the commitment coming out of the meeting.
Okay, you talked about flying from, Ethiopia Air had to airlift all contingents from this end. Should we expect to see a kind of frequency of flights between both destinations, and how will it improve ties?
No, absolutely. So there are lots of different things going on to smoothen that operation in terms of air services agreements, because it's not just one route. It's a number of countries where the possibility exists, whether that be Rwanda, whether that be Kenya, Nigeria, Senegal. And once we can get those things right, it can happen. I can tell you already in the closing ceremonies and after the press conference, it was made very, very clear by the Prime Minister that we're talking in a matter of months that we're trying to get this operationalized. So the faster we can get this airlift into the Caribbean, it then answers the second question that you brought up, the issue relative to ties. Because once our people can travel and they can see the Caribbean and then they can see Africa, all the ties will start to facilitate business, trade, investment, education, studies. And one of the things that we've also looked at is that for a long time, our citizens in both parts of our regions, Africa and the Caribbean, we always look northward, whether that be to the US or to Europe for studying. But there are phenomenal universities in the Caribbean. There are phenomenal universities in Africa. And our people must now also start looking at those areas for engagement in each other's jurisdictions. And therefore, this builds out what you call in the UN system and in development system, trade South-South cooperation. The time has long passed and it has now come for us to really deepen our level of engagement amongst ourselves because we have the resources, we have the intellect, we have our people. And the culture is very strong. No one can ever deny that the Caribbean culture is phenomenally rich. No one can ever deny that the African culture is incredibly and phenomenally rich. And therefore, when you fuse those two, and you can put those two regions together for our artists and young entrepreneurs and business people, believe you me, the sort of growth and development that our people aspire to have will be there in ways that we could have never imagined before.
Okay, there was a commitment to build a commercial bridge. Where does that bridge lead to?
Many areas. So part of it has to do with also the issue of financing. So you would have seen Afrexim Bank sign partnership agreements with a number of Caribbean countries, for example, several countries, because financing is going to be important if we're going to have to build a number of the areas we want to in terms of infrastructure development, technology, in both areas in the Caribbean and in Africa. But also the area of services. The Caribbean has a very strong comparative advantage with regards to trade and services. And once you can then have African business men and women coming to the Caribbean also to tap into that, and vice versa, inward to the African continent, we then start to build out new areas of business. Now, I can tell you already, Nigerian fashion, Nigerian movies, Nollywood, both are very popular in Barbados and in the Caribbean. Now, if we then do it, as the Prime Minister of Barbados said, not just in a happenstance way, but deliberately and institutionalize that processes and promotions, we are talking billions and billions of dollars in growth and development for our people. The area of the arts and music, Barbados in the Caribbean, we are very, very rich. And we are also a jurisdiction or a series of jurisdictions that thrives on outputting top-class events and everything. So, for example, at the closing ceremony of the forum a few days ago, your very own Yemi Alade, she performed, and she was very well received. She has a very strong gift that she delivered, and that comes in circumstances where only a few weeks ago, again, your very own Burna Boy performed in Barbados. So that's just an example of the sort of things that we can do. We have artists in Barbados who certainly would perform in the continent from across the Caribbean as well. So the possibilities are endless. And we are saying the time has come for us to forge deeper ties economically, technologically, socially, educationally, and not only look northward, but look amongst ourselves in our two regions. And another important area, you now have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We have the CARICOM Single Market and Economy in the Caribbean, in CARICOM in particular. And we are also looking to explore, based on the declaration, how can our two economic unions, or economic blocks rather, forge deeper ties for the benefit of our entrepreneurs in both the Caribbean and Africa.
Okay, you said the possibilities are endless. Any timelines for the construction of this bridge?
Well, it's already started. So, like anything, everything takes one brick at a time. But what has been very clear coming from this declaration is that we're moving ahead. Already, even throughout the conference before it ended, many of the business persons who were there from Barbados and the Caribbean were already doing different memorandums of understanding with businesses on the other side of the continent who were there. So it's not just now what happens after the conference. Once people were there, they were already engaging. Some people were making orders for fashion. Some people were looking to see how can I go to Nigeria and do fusions of music with Afrobeats and Caribbean and Calypso. So they're different things. Investment bankers were were there as well, looking to see how they can also set up companies in Barbados and the Caribbean, because the Caribbean region is a region that is also well managed in terms of its financial services. So therefore, it is not just what happens next after the conference. Of course, that's a very critical part, but it's a continuation of what was already happening there on the ground in Barbados.
Okay, you talked about entertainment, tourism, financial services. Any room for any what we would likely see in this relationship between Caribbean and Africa? I mean, in terms of goods and services.
No, absolutely, and that goes to the very core. Already, there is a demand in Barbados, I can tell you, for African goods, and I mean generally, not just one country. But let's take, for example, West Africa, and let's zero down to Nigeria. As I said, because of Nollywood and the exposure that that brings to the goods and services that you see on the screen in Nollywood, a number of Barbadians and Barbadian companies are very eager to acquire some of the luxury goods that you would see, for example, in Nollywood, because Barbados generally is a country that is driven by high quality goods, and you produce that there. How do we get that into our jurisdiction? So therefore, the supply chains we have to also build out to ensure that we can get our goods there. But equally, Barbados, we want to export lots of our goods to you. Barbados, as you may know, is the inventor and home of rum. In 1703, Mount Gay was the first rum brand in the world. We have different rum brands. You have Mount Gay, you have Bumbu, you have a whole host of different rums that I know Nigerians and West Africans and Africans generally would want to have in their markets. So there's a whole host of goods and also services that we now must build out through partnerships coming from this conference, coming from the intent and the will and the momentum that we've seen last week in Barbados.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ambassador Chad Blackman. Thank you very much for sharing your thought with us.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, wanted to say something. Well, moving forward, the United States of America has relaxed the ban on some Nigerian agricultural produce from entry into the country. Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development announced this in Abuja while receiving a report on the European Union ban on beans. Musa Liu has the details.
The European Union has since 2015 banned Nigerian beans into the market of any of its member nations. The ban was as a result of high residues of pesticides considered harmful to health in the beans exported to Europe. The Federal Minister of Agriculture said the exporter did not avail the beans for scrutiny before exporting it to Europe. Yam from Nigeria was also rejected in the United Kingdom and United States few years ago due to issues relating to packaging.
Before the ban, several unheeded notifications were sent to Nigerian authorities. To lift the ban, EU wants Nigeria to control her export and provide substantial evidence that the necessary food safety requirements and protocols are put in place.
The development has become a major concern to government, with the country being the world's largest producer of yam and beans. To this end, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture set up a committee to review and suggest ways Nigerian agricultural produce will be acceptable in the global market. The report was presented to the Minister of Agriculture.
We've been able to carry out the traceability system, design it, come up with the NEPA, the portal. We've also come up with a trader scheme to encourage the onboarding of people to participate and uptake the new process and protocols.
If our regulators and the private certification or inspection bodies operating in Nigeria are all accredited to the scopes we need them to be able to carry out the export control, then we have no reason to worry again about rejection of beans.
Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar said government is committed to Agro Zero Project initiative, stating that it would ensure best practices in food handling chain, robust linkage among stakeholders, and drive export in the agricultural sector.
I met with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, and we discussed in their own case some of the bans. We were able to resolve some of them, and they have even issued letters to the ministry for some of the bans have been lifted because we were able to reach that kind of understanding.
The team recommended a synergy between Ministry of Agriculture, NAFDAC's Standard Organization of Nigeria, and Nigeria Customs Service in the area of quality control and certification of produce before export. Musa Aliyu, NTA News.
Now, information just reaching us says federal government suspends introduction of 5% excise duty earlier proposed for the digital economy sector. Now to energy. OPEC and non-OPEC members have agreed to revert to the production level of August 2022 for participating countries for the month of October 2022, noting that the upward adjustment of 0.1 million barrels per day to the production level was only intended for the month of September 2022. The OPEC and non-OPEC ministerial meeting Monday noted the adverse impact of volatility and the decline in liquidity on the current oil market and the need to support the market stability and its efficiently functioning. The meeting noted that higher volatility and increased uncertainty require the continuous assessment of market conditions. The Nigerian National Petroleum Limited on Sunday insisted that the country consumes 68 million litres of petrol daily. The NNPC Limited, in a statement by its Group General Manager, Group Public Affairs Division, Garbadin Mohammed, said it imported a total volume of 16.46 billion litres of petroleum products into the country between January and August 2022. It said the combination of various present cost elements has translated to a retail pump price of 462 naira per litre, adding that the subsidy payment of 297 naira is to make the product affordable for the country. Now let's take a trip to the commodities market. Nigerian stocks advanced in the week ended Friday, the 2nd of September. Aisha Musa has all the details.
Last week was a positive one for the stock market in Nigeria as the NGX All-Share Index appreciated by 0.73% to close the week at 50,045.83. Market capitalization increased to 26.9 trillion naira. A total turnover of 1.195 billion shares worth 12.9 billion naira in 19,305 deals were traded by investors on the floor of the exchange. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 1.017 billion shares valued at 5.6 billion naira traded in 10,107 deals. The ICT industry followed and the consumer goods industry was in third place. Trading top three equities were Sterling Bank, Fidelity Bank, and Access Holdings, which jointly contributed to 540.056 million shares, valued at 1.499 billion naira in 2,179 deals. 7,811 of exchange-traded products, valued at 837,295.25, were traded in 25 deals, while 28,192 units of federal government bonds valued at 27.9 million naira were traded in 11 deals. All other indices finished higher with the exception of NGX Growth Index, which depreciated by 0.51%, while the NGX ASEM and NGX Sovereign Bond closed flat. 43 equities depreciated in price during the week, 21 equities depreciated in price, while 92 equities remain unchanged.
This week started on a downward trend for equities on the Nigerian stock market. At the close of trade this Monday, the all-share index depreciated to 49,991.41 basis point. As market capitalization also dropped to 26.964 trillion naira. Investors exchanged 200.9 million shares valued at 1.445 billion naira in 3,976 deals. Jams, flour mills, and Nigerian breweries top trading in terms of volume. That's it. Business Express. Welcome your way tomorrow, Tuesday by 9:30 a.m. Thanks for watching.
from dusk to dawn, 24 hours a day. NTA International is with you in your living room, office, everywhere and anywhere. We provide the company you desire in terms of balanced and up-to-date news, programs, and the best of entertainment. Tune in to DSTV channel 251, GoTV channel 91, Preview UK channel 264, or you can download www.visiontv.co.uk. App for iOS or Android. You can also see us on Facebook and YouTube for quality content on the go. NTA International, Africa's window to the world.
Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the U-Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
We all have stories to tell.
The small boy kicked me to open fire on me, so I said, okay, you can cross the right hand. So that's for how my right hand was cut off.
He's working with Closhy with which year that it was that guy. No, he's not an ordinary eye. No, it's not an eye. You use marry his wife.
It all depends on how I handle my story and how you're able to handle your own story.
Because what you decide in your mind that determines you, not your situation. I don't hear well. But one thing is, we are better together.
Joshua Lucy Pius in therapy.
Welcome to Against All Odds on the Nigerian Television Authority, a program that brings to your doorstep the lives of persons with disability.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Parents are the ultimate role models for children. Every word, movement, and action of any parent has an effect on the child. No other person or outside force has a greater influence on a child than the parents do. Through the personal qualities and achievements of the parent, they inspire the children to strive and develop without direct instruction. Today on The Eagle, we shall be focusing on the role of parents in promoting or combating cybercrime. I am Aisha Muhammad. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Eagle.
I am Abdurrashid Bawa. I stand against corruption. I call on every patriotic Nigerian to lend their voices in this crusade. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. Together we'll make Nigeria great.
We start today's program with a story from the Lagos Zonal Command of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission EFCC. It is a report of the handover of some properties recovered from a convicted fake army general, Bolarinwa Abiodun, to one Bamidele Safirio Olusegun. Here are details of the story.
Bolarinwa Abiodun had posed as an army general to defraud Bamidele Safirio Olusegun of the sum of 266,500,000 naira, was arrested by the EFCC. Upon his conviction on July 8, 2022, the trial judge, Justice Oluwatoyin Tayo of the Special Offences Court sitting in Ikeja, Lagos, had sentenced Abiodun to 7 years imprisonment and also ordered him to forfeit all the proceeds of the crime, as well as a Range Rover Sport utility vehicle, SUV, a black BMW car, a black Toyota Land Cruiser car, and a white Toyota Hilux. The Lagos Zonal Commander, Ahmed Gali, while handing over the vehicle at the EFCC's Lagos Command, described the development as a milestone in the fight against corruption and appealed to the people to always provide information to the EFCC to assist it in fighting corruption. Gali said that whoever commits a crime will not get away with it, as the EFCC will get the person anywhere, anytime. He added that, although the restitution is not 100%, the little that has been done is equally important. In his response, Olusegun commended the Commission for the doggedness in pursuing the case and saying that justice was served. He also applauded the operatives of the Commission for what he described as a job well done.
The Grassroots corruption fighters have called on the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to support it in its campaign against economic and financial crimes at the grassroots levels. This call was made in Abuja by the leadership of the group, led by the Senior Special Assistant on Information Technology to the Kano State Governor, Rufai Mustafa Daneji, who paid a courtesy visit to the EFCC headquarters in Abuja. Amina Kawa tells us more on the visit.
According to Daneji, the population of Nigerians at the grassroots is huge, and if people refuse to elect corrupt people into government, the problem of corruption will be drastically reduced, because corruption is the disease that kills Nigeria and any nation. He added that grassroots contribute immensely by giving corrupt leaders a chance in government through their votes. Therefore, the need to enlighten the people more, not to allow the corrupt get to power, is paramount. Daneji also commended the EFCC on its information technology architecture and sought its help and support to replicate the same in the Kano State's Anti-Corruption Agency.
It is a great pleasure for me and my colleagues here to have the opportunity for this point, for accepting to receive us on this important and memorable day. Thank you so much, sir. I will also appreciate your response to our recent letter requesting for courtesy and accommodation visits, which is for the purpose of attaining knowledge in the area of ICT, how you operate your ICT facilities, how you utilize, investigate, and you prevent and mitigate corruption and other criminal offenses, because we want to go back to Kano and see where we can employ your best practices in our state anti-corruption commission.
In his response, Secretary to the EFCC, Judge Ekpungu, assured Daneji that his proposal was good and commendable, and that the Commission will always partner with agency or individual that is genuinely committed to the fight against corruption. He stated that the EFCC is critical in the fight against corruption and is always ready to